The mansion on West Haven Hill had 42 rooms. Justin Orwell knew this because he had counted them. Twice on the night the police officer stood at his front door with that expression people wear when they are about to destroy your life. The officer's mouth had moved, his lips shaped words that Justin had learned to read over 30 years of living without sound. And even though Justin could not hear a single syllable, he understood every word as clearly as if someone had carved them into his chest with a knife. There was an accident, the plane, your wife, your children. I'm so sorry, Mr. Orwell. He had walked away from the officer without signing anything, without writing anything down, without a single tear. He had walked up the grand staircase, past the portrait of his wife Eleanor hanging in the second-floor hallway, her brown eyes warm and laughing, her hand resting on the shoulders of their 2 children. Mia, who was 7, and little Thomas, who had just turned 5, and he had gone into his study, sat in his leather chair, and stared at the wall until morning came and the sun had the audacity to rise like nothing had happened. That was 14 months ago. Welcome to Kindness Arena. If you believe in kindness, second chances and unseen connections that change lives, please help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me show her that stories like this matter and deserve to be heard by hitting the subscribe button, liking the video, comment your thoughts, where you are watching from, and share it with someone who needs it to stay motivated. Your support keeps these powerful true stories alive. Now, Justin Orwell dined alone. Every evening at exactly 7 o'clock, he sat at the far end of a dining table that could seat 24 people. The chef, a quiet Frenchman named Henri who had worked for the Orwell family for 11 years, would place a single plate at the head of the table, a single glass of red wine, and a single folded napkin. Henri had stopped setting 2 plates after the first week. He had stopped setting 3 plates after the second. By the 3rd week, the table was just 1 man, 1 plate, and 42 empty rooms pressing in around him like walls closing. Justin ate without looking at the food. He was a handsome man, 51 years old, with silver threading through his dark hair and the kind of face that once laughed easily and often. His company, Orwell Technologies, was worth close to $2 billion. He had shaken hands with presidents and dined with kings. He had built schools in 3 countries and funded hearing clinics across South America not for publicity, but because he knew what silence felt like and he did not want any child to feel it without help. But none of that mattered at 7 o'clock in the evening, when the chair to his left sat empty where Eleanor used to sit, and the 2 smaller chairs across from him held nothing but shadows. He chewed, he swallowed, and he stared at the flickering candle Henri always placed at the center of the table, a habit Eleanor had started years ago because she said candlelight made even ordinary Tuesday dinners feel like celebrations. Justin had told Henri to stop lighting it many times. Henri kept lighting it anyway. Justin had stopped arguing. His grief was not loud, it could not be, in his world. His grief was architectural. It had structure. Rooms within rooms. Some evenings it felt like a cathedral of loss, enormous and hollow and cold, the kind of space where your own footsteps echo back at you like accusations. Margaret Cole had been cleaning the Orwell mansion for 3 years. She was a small woman, in her 30s, with tired eyes and capable hands and a laugh she reserved mostly for when Mr. Orwell was not around, because he did not seem to want laughter in the house anymore and she respected that. She communicated with him through a small whiteboard she kept in her apron pocket. He would write back in clean, precise handwriting. Their exchanges were functional and brief. The east guest bathroom faucet is dripping. I'll call the plumber. Thank you, Mr. Orwell. That was the extent of their relationship. Professional, careful like 2 people navigating the same narrow corridor without ever touching. Margaret had a son. His name was Jackson and he was 8 years old, round-cheeked and serious, with large dark eyes that always appeared to be solving a problem the rest of the world hadn't noticed yet. Margaret's mother usually watched Jackson during work hours, but on this particular Thursday in November, her mother had fallen ill, and the babysitter had cancelled, and Margaret had no other option but to bring him along and hoping that Mr. Orwell would either not notice or not mind, but he noticed. Justin was passing through the corridor toward the dining room at 6:30 when he stopped and saw Margaret standing near the base of the staircase, wiping down the banister, a young boy with her. He stared. Margaret looked up, immediately reached for her whiteboard. I'm so sorry. My mother is sick. It won't happen again. I can leave if... Justin held up one hand. The universal gesture. Stop. He looked at the boy. The boy looked back at him with those enormous, calculating eyes. Then, with the complete lack of social awareness that only babies possess, Jackson reached one chubby arm out in Justin's direction and opened and closed his fist. The universal baby gesture. You, come here. Justin blinked. He had not been reached for, in 14 months. He wrote on the whiteboard, "It's fine. Carry on," and he walked into the dining room. Dinner that evening was sea bass with a lemon butter sauce, asparagus, and roasted potatoes. Justin ate 3 bites of fish and moved the rest around his plate. The candle flickered, the table stretched away from him into the darkness of the room like a country he no longer had a visa for. He did not notice when Margaret appeared quietly in the dining room doorway to dust the cabinet near the entrance. He had his back to her. He did not notice when she set Jackson down on the floor for a moment to give her back a rest. He did not notice when Jackson, exercising the terrifying freedom of a newly mobile toddler, decided that the shiny floor was excellent for crawling and began making his way, with tremendous focus, across the dining room. He noticed when something patted his shoe. Justin looked down. Jackson was sitting at his feet. The boy had both hands wrapped around Justin's left shoe and was staring up at him with an expression of complete satisfaction, as though he had been searching his whole short life for exactly this shoe and had finally found it. Then Jackson pulled himself upright, standing with the wobbling triumph of someone who had recently discovered legs, and placed both palms flat on Justin's knee. Justin did not move. Jackson looked up at the table. He looked at the candle. He looked back at Justin. Then he did something that made the breath leave Justin's body entirely. He smiled, not a polite smile, not a cautious smile. The kind of smile that has no agenda, no history, no knowledge of loss or tragedy or 14 months of silent grief. A smile that was just light. Pure, stupid, gorgeous light. And then Jackson, tottering with the confidence of the completely fearless, climbed up onto Justin's shoe, wrapped his arms around Justin's shin, and pressed his small face against Justin's knee as though this man, this silent, hollow, shuttered man, was the warmest place in the world. Something cracked inside Justin Orwell. Not broke, cracked. The way ice cracks in spring, not shattering, but shifting, releasing, making way for something that has been trapped underneath for a very long time. His hand moved before his mind gave it permission. He reached down and placed his palm gently on the back of Jackson's head. The boy's hair was soft, impossibly soft. The way Thomas's hair had been soft. The way Mia's had been when she was small and would fall asleep against his shoulder on Sunday mornings while Eleanor laughed at them both from across the room. Justin's eyes went to the candle. The flame bent sideways in some draft from the hallway, and for a single, suspended moment, it looked exactly like it always had on Tuesday evenings when Eleanor was alive and Mia was complaining about asparagus and Thomas was secretly feeding pieces of his dinner to the dog under the table and the whole house was crowded and loud with a life that Justin could not hear but could feel in every wall and window and floorboard. He felt it now. Faintly, distantly like a radio signal from very far away, but he felt it. Margaret appeared in the doorway, whiteboard already in hand, face stricken with apology. "Jackson. I am so sorry, Mr. Orwell." He crawled away. "I'll take him right now." Justin looked up at her, then he looked down at Jackson, who had now apparently decided that Justin's knee was a reasonable seat and had settled onto it with his whole weight, leaning back against Justin's chest like he owned the place. Justin reached for the whiteboard on the table where he always kept one nearby. He wrote slowly. "Does he like sea bass?" Margaret stared at the board, she looked up at Justin, she looked at her son, then she looked back at the board. "He's 8 years old," she wrote. "He eats everything." Justin nodded once. He looked at Henri, who had appeared silently in the kitchen doorway having witnessed the entire exchange, and who was all ready because Henri had worked for this family for 11 years and understood some things that didn't require language, walking back toward the kitchen. He came back 2 minutes later with a small bowl of flaked fish, no seasoning, cut into tiny pieces. Justin set it on the table. He looked at Jackson. He patted the table's edge. Jackson grabbed a piece of fish, examined it and ate it. Then looked up at Justin and did it again with that smile, that ridiculous, brilliant, devastating smile. Justin Orwell, deaf millionaire, widower, father of 2 children who were never coming home, looked at this baby and felt, for the first time in 14 months, that the 42 rooms of his mansion were not a prison. They were just rooms, and rooms could be filled again. Not with the same life, never the same life, but with a life. With something small and warm and unafraid. He looked at the empty chair to his left. He looked at the candle. Thank you, he thought, to Eleanor, to Mia, to Thomas, to all the love that had lived in this house and never really left. Then he looked at Jackson, who was eating his 3rd piece of fish and making a sound of absolute contentment. Justin couldn't hear it. But he could feel it in the small warm weight against his chest, a vibration, a hum, the tiniest tremor of joy. And for the first time in 14 months, Justin Orwell did not finish dinner alone. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness is never wasted and that even a broken path can lead to beautiful places and change of lives, Please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Arena because your support keeps stories like this alive and spreading. Tell us in the comment what you would have done differently if you were the millionaire. Would you have accepted the cleaner's son? Or has a stranger's kindness ever changed your life in ways you didn't expect? Would love to hear your story.